Yep. So cameras on if you could, I'd appreciate it. And we have Julie Mackert here with Next Level Insurance. She's going to be talking to us about homeowners insurance 101. And um, I'll have all of her contact info in the recording. So if you're watching this later, you just look down there. I'll put all of her contact info. You already got an email with it as well. And go ahead and Julie, I'll just let you take it away.
Thank you, Kirsten. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. So
Hi.
I'm Julie Mackert with Next Level Insurance, and we are a local insurance broker. We're actually licensed in Maryland, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, and DC. So, Mid-Atlantic region. I am going to focus on mostly Maryland today, but ultimately it's very similar in all those states. Um, and with insurance, I'm sure if you are a homeowner, you've dealt with it. If you drive a car, I know you've had insurance. So, I'm going to explain to you, a real estate agent, how it impacts your transaction. So I'm going to share my screen.
Uhum, tô certo já, viu? Pô?
Let's see. All right. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right. This is my number, which I think we've shared with you, but um, I'm always a phone call away, email if you have questions. So, to start out, why insurance matters in a home transaction. Um, your buyer is going to need it for their loan. So this is where I connect with the lender. The lender requests the homeowner's insurance, evidence of insurance, replacement cost value, before you get to settlement or before you get that clear to close. So it's very important that I'm in contact with not only the buyer but the lender so we can get all that taken care of. One of the issues that people are having with the loan process, um, premiums for insurance have gone up, and it's impacting the buyer's ability for their purchase power. And we want to take care of that ahead of time. If it's a property that the insurance premium is going to push them over the edge, we want to know that up front. So that's very important when you're putting contracts in. You want to make sure that you've looked at the insurance piece of it to make sure it doesn't exceed their debt to income ratios, which it sounds like you were speaking with a lender last week or have some communication. So just something to consider. And we never want to kill a deal in the end. So, you know, getting that information up front is so important. So, like I said, insurance premiums have gone up. They've increased about 25% since 2021. So that's probably it's probably one of the largest increases we've seen in recent times. So that's just across the board. There's a couple factors that have caused this increase. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about roofs. So if you ever talk to an insurance agent, one of the first questions we ask is, how old is the roof? And one of the problems that had kind of came up maybe around like COVID time, um, different roofers were going around and reaching out to homeowners and working maybe the system to get people free roofs because of maybe there was like hail damage, or they would go on top and make marks on the roof, and insurance companies were paying out, and that impacted their bottom line, which then turns it just changes the market completely because they had to raise their rates to manage all the payouts that they've had. So roofs are very important. They're much stricter than they've ever been on a roof. And I'll explain to you a little bit more. Also with certain locations like waterfront properties, coastal areas with flooding, hurricanes, people are pulling out of certain areas. Specifically, I don't deal with it personally, but Florida is difficult, along with California because of the fires and other things. So, Maryland, we have our own issues with coastal areas, but for the most part, we have a lot of options that we can look at. And number three here, homes with older roofs, wiring, and plumbing are definitely an issue. All right. So, what your buyers need to do immediately when you're looking at homes or getting ready to put in a contract is they've already talked to their lender. They know their pre-approval value, but you might want to give your insurance agent a call. So it's really important to have that good relationship. So you can call your insurance agent, hey, this is a home. Do you see any red flags? So one of the things, just as a baseline, a roof that's over 15 years old doesn't mean we can't write that policy, but it's something that may require a roof certification, or we might need more evaluation of it. So that's something, find out the age of the roof. What is the condition of it? Knob and tube wiring. I'm not an electrician. I don't expect any of you to know exactly what all of this is, but knob and tube wiring is something that they used years ago. It was big in the early 70s. There's probably homes earlier than that have it, but that is not going to fly with any insurance carrier that I work with. So that would have to be upgraded to a circuit breaker or something along those lines. And knob and tube wiring can cause a fire. So we don't want electrical fires. You don't want your buyer to purchase a home that has the ability to, catch fire. So definitely ask those questions. Your home inspector would be a great resource for that. If there's cast iron plumbing, over time, it probably has rusted out and is leaking, but you want to make sure that the plumbing is updated and in good working order. Now, history of claims. We're looking at not only the buyer's history of their other properties where they've lived, but you want to find out, have there been any claims on the house that they want to purchase? If there has been any claims, has the problem been repaired? So that's a question to ask the listing agent to find out, hey, have there been any water leaks, any claims with the roof, siding, those types of things to make sure that it has been repaired. And so we just talked about that, asking questions about any upgrades and then tree removal. And I'll get into trees here shortly. But the roof, you want to make sure some of the things you can look at with your naked eye. Others, you will have to have a roof certification or somebody to jump up there to kind of give you the lay of the land. But you can see that, if you see water leaking inside the home, do you see any sagging, damaged flashing, like around chimneys? That's where water can get into. If there's moss growing on it, if it's an area with a lot of trees, those are things that are red flags to say, hey, wait a minute, let's take a closer look at this roof. Roofs are protecting the interior of your house, the structure, the integrity of it, and a roof is very important. While you may not see it, it's definitely something that cannot be forgotten. This is a picture of knob and tube wiring to give you an idea. If you do see that, that would be something to immediately contact your inspector, talk to an electrician to get that worked out. We have the cast iron plumbing and trees. So again, roofs are very important, but trees are great for the environment, and they do bring look great on the curb appeal. But we don't want trees overhanging on a roof too close to a home. Branches fall, they crash into the home. So if you're looking at a home and the trees are just overgrown, that is something to address prior to submitting anything. And then if you are working with any sellers, this is a good time to sit down when you do your listing presentation to explain to them, okay, who's your insurance carrier right now? Just because they have insurance doesn't mean that the new buyer isn't going to have problems, because their policy doesn't transfer to the new buyer. The new buyer has to initiate a brand new policy. So if anything was like grandfathered in or they've had for years, beware, it could cause a problem. So that's where, finding out when was the last time the roof was replaced. How about your electrical? When was that upgraded? Plumbing, all of those things. Again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but plumbing, electrical, and roofs. You want to make sure you know the information. And obviously fix any obvious hazards. Another thing insurance is looking at is railing. So anything with more than 3 steps needs to have a railing. And that does not matter what kind of loan you have. That is something that insurance will require. And obviously, like I said, having that good working relationship is so important to help you in your job. So knowing an insurance agent, having that access to call or email them is very important. And obviously, you're the realtor, so you want to be that middleman for your clients. So insurance issues do come up, especially in during the transaction. And we work very closely if there is an issue with price, talking with the lender to determine how we can make that happen. We have different carriers that fit different needs. So, if you have a home in the city, a row home, we might have a particular carrier that it fits perfectly with. And then, our main carrier is Erie, Travelers, Safeco. But then this is the one good thing about being a broker, we have some other carriers that can also help out in issues with older homes, properties that might have multi-use. So there are options out there. And if there are problems, we try to work with everyone to get it to the table. And so we've had issues where we can't write the policy until something has been repaired. For example, an old roof. I have worked with agents where they were able to negotiate that with the seller. So there was some like closing, some seller's contribution towards it, and we had it all documented. The insurance carrier was satisfied as long as the roof was replaced within 30 days of settlement. So they went to the table, they closed on the home, and then it was completed. So there are things that that's why you just have to ask the questions and have a really good working relationship so we can negotiate that. And don't panic if your buyer comes back, I cannot get insurance for this home. There may be some carriers that don't want that risk. However, with a broker, there are other options we can always look at. And if a buyer has cold feet, is concerned about things like I'm sure as you get more experience, you're going to understand there's a lot of moving parts with buying a house. So insurance, while it may cause some more stress, in the end, we're hoping to work that through. So when they do purchase the property, it has that roof that meets the requirements. The electrical is updated. It has a railing for the stairs. Like these are things that are going to help them in the long run. Okay, so just to give you some background, and I talked a little bit about the roofs, but insurance has gone up, and a lot of it has to do with repair costs. So, building material is higher than it was before. There's a lot of weather-related losses, and the insurance companies are becoming more conservative. They are very um, their underwriting guidelines are a lot stricter than they were even 5 years ago. So we really want to understand what we're writing. So there might be multiple questions from your insurance agent, but the reasons are because we don't want to write a policy and then it gets dropped 2 months later. So it's very important to do all that up front. And okay, here's an example. And I actually got permission from the agent, the listing agent. So she was a listing agent for this property and it was under contract. And it came back that the roof did not meet the insurance underwriting guidelines. And before they went to settlement, it was the seller, however they worked it, I don't know those details, but you can see clearly there's signs there. They're getting a new roof because they couldn't get to closing without that. So not only do you want your buyers to be aware, but sellers need to understand that as well. And that's a very brief kind of overview of everything. My contact information is here. I can, we can open this up to questions or any discussion. So, I'm here.
Yeah,
Anything?
let's open it up to questions. Victoria, you had a question in the chat. Do you want to just come off of mute?
Yeah, hi. So, I'm just curious, like I just had my first closing and my guys got their insurance and everything, and I don't remember like an insurance adjuster, not adjuster, but the somebody coming out and looking at it or asking for the documents. Maybe they did, but how do you guys do the analysis of whether or not the roof? I mean, do you look at the inspection or how does that happen?
So when we originally have the conversation, this is how I work. I usually have a phone call, kind of consultation with the buyer, and I'll ask those questions. I will look at the listing. I look up the tax records, and if I cannot determine the age of the roof from that information, I'll ask the question to the buyer, who usually reaches out to their realtor, so we'll talk about that. I do have access to aerial photos through some of the carriers. So they do their own like research on properties. So we're looking at it from various angles. And then so I try to do all the underwriting up front. There's different carriers that might just take in the information, plug it in, provide it, and then it's written. But over time, they could do a review. They might do an on-site inspection and have issues. So there are times where I might stop out to the property to do an exterior inspection if there's any concerns. But we're using technology, information that is shared from the buyer. And then, that's how we're getting that information. Now, there are times when the inspection report is shared. I know that can be a little bit of a touchy subject, but more importantly, the appraisal is important for us to see because we're looking at the replacement cost, not the market value. We're looking at if total loss happened, how much would it cost to replace that home? And in the appraisal, it'll give you a line that says cost new, and you'll see that. And we want to make sure we're rating it properly. So I hope that answered your question.
And follow up is like you said, these people could get their roof replaced in 30 days. Would that be double checked or would there be,
Yes.
they would
Yeah.
they would forfeit insurance on anything roof related because they didn't get it done or?
So there would be a reasonable, it's not a hard and fast rule of 30 days. I usually share that because we don't want to go 6-9 months down the road and nothing's been done. But, like right now with the snow, I understand a roof probably isn't getting replaced right now. So within reason, we want to have documentation from the company, a receipt, something on letterhead that says it's been replaced. We might do a site visit, confirm it with a picture. That's what we do here at our agency. Now, every carrier we work with is different. They have people, a third party that would go out and do their inspections. They do spot inspections. So they're looking out for all of their policies that they have out there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jeanette, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering, when you said that you have to have railing for when you have more than 3 steps, is that for both inside and outside the house?
So we're looking at
Yeah.
we're, we're looking at the exterior of the home. I don't do interior inspections. But it would be a rule to follow for safety. But that's, I mean, depending on like the loan, if it's an FHA or USDA, there might be some other stipulations. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm looking at the exterior steps.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Natalia.
Oh, yes. Hi, Julie. Do you cover the whole DMV, DC and Virginia?
Yeah, so we're agents that work our office is located in Maryland, in Phoenix, Maryland. It's near Hunt Valley. But we write policies in Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, and DC.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Has anyone, here's a question for everyone. Have you had any showings with homes and you were, unsure of some of this information? Was it even brought to your attention? I'm just curious, like if you've taken anybody out looking at homes, has that conversation ever started with, okay, like this kitchen is upgraded because you're going to look at the shiny objects, and the roof, electrical, and plumbing is probably the farthest from your mind, or you're looking at the beautiful yard. Has anyone, kind of started off with, let's look at the function of this house? I'm just curious if that's anybody's experience.
I have a young single mom who's really concerned about all that because, the mortgage is going to be put her in a tight situation already, and she can't afford any major things happening. So that's definitely concerning. Like,
Yeah.
she's like, let me see the HVAC.
Right. Yeah. We want to know how old that is. I didn't really bring that up, but we do want to know how old that is. And we were talking in our office, like when we're talking, a lot of times first time home buyers, we're like, how old is the HVAC? They're like, what? I don't even know what kind it is. And those are things like, if you're purchasing a home and this, it's the biggest purchase, like it's a very expensive investment. And you want to be able to afford the house, and affording the house is maintaining the house. And those are things. So if it's an older roof, knowing that, hey, in the next 5 years, I'm going to have to replace that, and that's thousands of dollars. Do you have it? So not to turn people away from properties, because we're all in the business to make money, but just making sure that your clients are getting what they expect and understanding, like if they're okay with that, that's fine. But know that, there are going to be some costs coming up. Yeah, so I was just curious about, your experiences out there. And I work with a lot of agents and a lot of lenders. And I think when the market shifted, as interest rates went up, insurance was going up, and everybody was like, I think over time we're all understanding. They're like, don't worry, Julie, it's a newer roof. We got that confirmed, so it evolves. But yeah, that's what we're seeing here for this year. But I'm happy to, if you have buyers interested in things, if you're looking at your own personal insurance and have specific questions, happy to be a resource for you. Call me or email me. And I'm happy to help if, you need anything.
All right, looks like we have one more question.
Okay.
Yeah, Caroline.
Oh, yes, sorry, I was a little bit late to the meeting. I just wanted to clarify, are you an insurance broker?
Yes.
Got
So
it.
I'm a
Because I
licensed
heard you
insurance.
mention several companies, so I was like, oh, that makes you a broker, right? I was just double
Yes,
checking.
yeah. So not only do I have multiple carriers for personal, like residential homes and auto umbrella policies, we also do business, so small business insurance as well. But for you, I don't know if anybody's getting into commercial real estate, so we also do work with that as well.
So just to clarify, since you're a broker, does that then mean that you would find the right insurance company for
Yeah.
your
So
homeowners?
I had mentioned our main carrier is Erie, and we can place we can do a lot with Erie. However, Erie doesn't like necessarily like older homes in the city with flat roofs or something that isn't. We kind of know where the different carriers feel most comfortable for the risk. So we have options for the home that doesn't meet the standard carrier that we have. So that's really important. And then also, as renewals come up every year and premiums adjust, we can then shop it to make sure it's still in the best carrier and it's the most competitive for that buyer.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for coming in
Oh,
today.
does Victoria,
Can I jump in with
Victoria?
one more
Yeah,
quick question?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Because I was just driving around DC with my son, and I couldn't answer this question. When you have a townhome and you have a fire or flood and it goes into either side that you're
Mhm.
like, does your insurance cover the damage to the house next to you, the adjacent house as well?
So that's a good question. If you're in like a condo and it has a condo association, which will have coverage for your personal condo, your insurance will cover the studs in, and then everything else would be covered through the condo association and which they're paying into, and that covers that portion of it. A townhouse, if you're in a townhouse that it's not an associate, doesn't have an additional insurance, your insurance is going to be covering your particular home, which say you're the impacted property. So the house next to you had a fire, your insurance would kick in. But it's kind of built in, knowing that you do share a wall and that something that happens to your neighbor could impact your home. So it's built in with the premium, but obviously every situation has nuances. So when the claims adjuster comes, that's who ultimately makes that decision. But yeah, I mean, it's understandable that things are going to happen or could happen, and it impacts your property, but it's not caused by you. So they do take a look at that, and you do have coverages for that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Well, and right on time, because everybody in here should be heading over to the important coaching update we have at 12:30. Thanks so much, Julie. If
You're
anybody
welcome.
in late and you want to see the beginning of this, I'll have this posted into the coaching community later, probably later today. So it'll be there pretty quick to see any updates. And
Great.
I'll have Julie's contact info, but take it right here because she's a great person for you to remember having your phone so that when even if you're out looking at a house and you see something that might concern you, you know who you can reach out to. Yep. All right. Thanks so much, Julie. And thanks.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend. Happy
Thank
Valentine's
you very
Day.
much.
Thank you.